But
wait, I just remembered now.
Oh yeah.
Okay, now I know I can answer this question truly as just one answer. Okay, my favorite production, I have to say, to date, is when I did Miss Saigon in North Carolina back in 2009.
Okay.
In Raleigh, North Carolina. I walked into this Broadway-filled cast that did a regional equity theater in North Carolina. The engineer was the amazing, late and great Kevin Gray. We had Jennifer Paz from the Toronto cast and Josh Tower, who did Simba in The Lion King on Broadway. That was the start of the experience, but what made it my favorite in the end is that culturally, you can tell it's the morning for me, right? It was a kind of a huge moment for me because my whole life, my parents had always promised that they would take us to Vietnam because I was born in America, first generation Vietnamese American. And they promised me my whole life that we would go as a family so they could show us where they grew up and their home country. Mm-hmm. And through my adult life, through my sister graduating from college, they just kept kind of postponing this and making excuses. And it got to a point where I finally asked my mother, were we ever going to go and did she ever want us to go? And she finally admitted that she never intended for us to go and she never thought that we would still be interested through, you know, being an adult and with all this time passing. So I became really upset and resentful for this idea that my mom had lied to me my whole life. And I had this huge interest of going. When I did the production of Miss Saigon, it got to the part where we finally did the run through in the dance studio before we moved it to the theater. And it resonated so well with me, but then once we got to the stage, we got through the SITS probe and we finally started staging things. And the scene where all the Vietnamese are trying to get on that helicopter to leave and escape to America, you know, in that scene, they bring all these fences and this, how would they stage it for the perspectives of the song? It's quite incredible. And I remember my first performance of doing it in front of a live theater audience. You know, it really impacted me in a way that I understood where my mom was coming from because she kind of went through that war era and they escaped Vietnam to come to America. Mm-hmm. And of course, she never really shared a lot of stories because there was so much trauma there. So it wasn't until that moment where we were in our first performance, I got so emotionally into it and understood almost to a T of what it, like a fraction of what my mom must have gone through. And I left the stage sobbing. And of course, this amazing stage managers were there. They had boxes of tissues and all that stuff. And I started to realize this is why my mom does not want to come back. Mm-hmm. And I might not ever know the full story, but that was just a glimpse in her world of what that kind of trauma was like back then. So I forgave her. And in that moment, it wasn't even about theater anymore, in the sense that I had more of a connection with my mother and to forgive her for not wanting to go back. And that's the power of the theater moment, is when you encapsulate that kind of idea of the character that you play and you dig deep and you come from a very authentic place, it can expand to another place, as it did for me, to where I can have a little bit more understanding and empathy for my situation because of my mother. And that was a big revelation for me and a big moment and a turning point because, you know, theater can change you, live performances can change you, and we do it for ourselves and we do it for the audience and the ticket holders. But essentially, there's so much that can come out of it for yourself and you don't even know it until that time happens. So that was a big moment for me.
That's absolutely cool. Amazing. That's so cool. What a kind of a beautiful, but yet there's so much sorrow in that story as well, but beauty. So thank you for sharing that with us. That is really beautiful.
I can't believe I forgot about that. But now it's like so fresh in my mind. Yeah.
So can I just interrupt? Because like we said at the beginning, that you and Ray worked together on the ships and stuff like that. Let's just have a moment just to kind of just have a chat and just see those special moments that you had on the ship. Was there any standout moments that you guys had? Any particular
many
moments where you go, oh, if I could just remain in this moment forever, it would be wonderful.
I'll tell you what, watching Johnny Kim do a beam routine on the edge of the stage was a highlight for me.
I did love to try and impersonate horrible choreography from gymnastics beam routines and take elements from different people or countries and kind of implement it into it was just a hilarious moment. No, Ray and I had a lot of good moments. You know, she came into these contracts being a very ballet trained dancer and nothing commercial per se. And I came in quite green as well, but the opposite, a little bit maybe more commercial than classically trained. So it was a great partnership because we learned from each other. And because of that, we also had a lot of fun on stage. But one of the moments that sticks in my mind that makes me smile every time I think about it is Ray and I decided that we wanted to try adagio moves, you know, pas de deux, but to like an acrobatic level. And so we just did trial and error. You know, we had no technique when it came to, no, that's more so me. When it came to like hand placement of where you should place things just to make lifts more sustainable for the longevity of it. And there was this moment during a warm-up where we went up for a lift and I just started to fall back. And before you know it, it was like this slow motion storm roll onto the stage. And here we are on top of each other laying down. And of course, everyone's doing vocal warm-ups, turning around going, what is going on? And of course, we were just trying to be an adagio couple and it was hilarious. But, you know, we had some good moves. We just had one moment that was a little not so good. And it's, you're always taught not to drop the girl. And well, that one moment, I failed.
It's all right. I bounced off the stage. It's all fine.
Yeah.
But no, there were.
It was so fun.
Moments. I mean, I value the cabaret shows that we did because for several reasons.
Oh yes.
I mean, Johnny, basically, you just kind of ran those shows because you would play the piano for all of us. You were kind of the glue that held us together, and just like all these crazy moments. I mean, I remember Amelie just busting out some of the craziest stuff. Faye trying to sing Stars on the Moon and getting the lyrics all back to front all the time. Incredible singer, but that song I just remember that song. But for me, it was as a non-singer, because at that point I had no vocal training and my voice, let's be honest, was pretty horrible. But it gave me the opportunity, and you guys as singers, I felt so much support from you guys that, you know, I was not a singer. I was not in anywhere near your league, but that platform existed for me to explore and to grow, and from there to then go and take proper vocal training, and then as a result of that actually work as a vocalist. So I mean, that for me is just, it was such I just felt so supported and honored by all of you, but particularly Johnny, because obviously, like I said, you know, you used to just encourage me so much. And yeah, I loved those cabarets. What did we call them? Beyond Broadway.
Beyond Broadway, yes. And we opened with Songs from a New World by Jason Robert Brown, and we had just such a good collection of vocalists. So the ensemble of it all, I mean, I look back at that too, and I think, wow, that was pretty special. Yeah, I did love that moment a lot. Beyond Broadway, yes.
I'm just going to ask a question, because I know a lot of our listeners, viewers will probably asking this. Working on a ship, are there certain techniques that you have to work on a technique? Like how does the motion of the ocean
the motion of the ocean
actually affect what you do and things like this?
Absolutely, 100% affects what you do, because you never know what's going to happen. There's really no technique to it. I think it's just a matter of understanding to expect the unexpected, and you know, there's a certain level of risk when it comes to that. And I think, you know, in this day and age, ships are so much bigger that maybe it's not as effective, and maybe they only stay in their certain regions. But, you know, we were on a big ship, but it was one of those ships that could still travel through a Panama Canal and go from continent to continent. And some of those seas can be pretty rough. Ray and I went through a hurricane on the Norwegian Dawn.
Oh, we did.
And
yeah.
that one was scary, but you know, thankfully no one got hurt. But just to give you kind of an idea of what it was like, you know, there was a moment where we were all on stage in choreography in a formation. And if you started on 0, in one big wave, you ended up on 4 and you had done nothing. You maybe did like a small jump, or maybe even just a step click, but it just shifted everyone over. And before you knew it, you know, we were just swaying. So it makes jumping on ships a little bit daunting, just because you never know when that stage is going to either come up or drop down or move to the side, and you just have to be prepared. But who knows, maybe in this day and age with how the ships are, it's maybe not as rocky when it comes to some of those things, but it's pretty scary. But we were young, we had no idea, we were like, whatever.
You were like, if we do a jeté and we don't come down for another 20 beats, it doesn't matter, it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we were so much younger. So, but now obviously we're older, and now obviously you are working, as we said, with Cirque. So I have this curiosity that if I were now, which I'm not, but if I were in my dream world, a performer with Cirque du Soleil, and I was working with you on a show, what, as an artist and you as the artistic director, what sort of interaction would we have together, and you know, what would our relationship be? How would it be to work with Johnny Kim?
To be honest, the working relationship would be similar to how we're speaking right now. You know, I think I want to be able to continue my career always holding on to the idea of me being in their shoes, because I think once when we're an artist, we're an artist for life, and there should be real no separation. Yes, there is a responsibility that I have. There is kind of a leadership role that I take that's quite official, but those are just words. Like the word artistic director, yes, it sounds quite big, and it can be, and it is, but I don't like to lead by a title. So I lead similarly to how I have always been, whether it was just a dance captain on a cruise ship to where I am now. And I think that has bode well for me, because I have a philosophy of treating people as humans first before they're artists, because at the end of the day, when we leave the theater, we're all just the same, regardless of what we do. And I think when we get to know each other in that deep level, that's where a connection can be made, to where there's you know, a mutual respect, there's a mutual understanding of each other. And when we become the best versions of ourselves, that's when we can flourish on the stage, regardless if it's dance or it's acrobatics, you know, just to have that working relationship. So regardless if we were friends before and we worked together in this capacity, nothing of that would change, because it's more about how we can be as a collective and be cohesive. But we cannot be what the show intention is or the quality of what we want on stage unless we are the best human beings we can be personally. Because outside of this, when a career ends, if somebody doesn't know what they want to do, we are at our core, once again, as just humans in the world, coexisting and trying to find a purpose. So I kind of lead through that aspect. So working for me is truly about a human connection first, because everything comes after. You know, I learned through the years that you can be really great at 5, 6, 7, 8 and doing choreography, but that can be easily just on the surface and quite superficial if there's nothing behind it. So I have a humanistic approach to everything.